Digimon World, released in 2000 for the PlayStation 1, was the very first Digimon video game made, and the very first one I played. It is a confusing, glitchy, poorly translated title with ill-defined objectives and goals, but I can't help but love it due to tons of childhood nostalgia. Digimon World opens with a frighteningly animated pre-title screen intro and a frighteningly animated intro cinematic. They feature a bunch of characters all voiced by Mona Marshall raving about Digimon, the hottest craze ever, before the main protagonist gets literally sucked into the actual Digimon world, the digital world, by his keychain game. Once there, you meet Digimon, a wise elderly Digimon who explains that you are the super special fantastic chosen one, the best tamer, think Pokemon trainer, to save their world. From here you meet your partner Digimon, predetermined by an incredibly vague quiz, and are given a mission to train and raise your partner Digimon, and scour the lands to recruit forlorn Digimon back into File City, so that it may prosper again. And looking around, yeah, it's kind of an empty dump. So the premise probably seems pretty simple, and it is, but the gameplay systems are where things start to get ill-explained, and potentially ultimately frustrating for new players, and honestly even returning players. Staying true to the series' origins as a virtual pet counterpart to Tamagotchi, your Digimon has a whole bunch of stats and meters to show how well you're caring after your Digimon. There are happiness meters, discipline meters, a virus meter for if you don't let your Digimon get to a toilet in time. Yep, you have to poop. Yep, it's gross. Yep, it's obnoxious. And other hidden meters for care mistakes. And you're just kind of thrust into all of this. You quickly learn that there's a meat farm near Digimon's house. Yeah, a meat farm? So when your Digimon is hungry, you can feed them, but no one really explicitly tells you about this. You're just sort of left to your own device to work that much out. So you kind of learn your Digimon's schedule, when they eat, when they need to use the restroom, when they need to sleep, etc. But these schedules are different for different kinds of Digimon, and hey, Digimon Digivolve! Which is to say, after certain conditions are met after certain periods of times, they'll change form and become a more powerful, or even much weaker Digimon. You're never told what conditions lead to what, you just kinda have to roll with the punches unless you want to pull up a guide. Which is kind of the theme of the game here. So you can train your Digimon at the gym, but what should your stats be? How powerful are the Digimon you're going to fight in any area? What's the ideal path through the game? Why do certain Digimon you need to invite to your city only show up under incredibly specific conditions sometimes? These are all quirks that will either make or break Digimon World for you, as you are never told or given too much indication. You're just left to your own devices. And if you can grapple well with the game proper, that may be an incredibly appealing thing to you. But being handed so many things to juggle at once and barely even pointed in the direction to head in can be off-putting for many, and time has proven that it was off-putting for many when it comes to this game. Once you've bumbled your way out of the city some, you'll start finding Digimon that can be recruited. These are almost always signified by having pre-fight dialogue and more menacing music, though there are exceptions. These Digimon can come back to your city and open up conveniences like an item bank, an item shop, a hospital, more robust meat farms, and more. So in addition to being the main objective, it can be pretty rewarding and arguably essential to be the challenging Digimon and open up a handy new amenity in File City. There are also some Digimon that just kinda show up and only add cosmetic values like streetlights, but I always find these kind of restoration projects in video games appealing, and I think Digimon World is the route why. Sure, you have to wade through a lot of confusing nonsense to get there, but it feels really rewarding to see the city prosper thanks to your efforts. What can break the flow of things is the digivolving process, unfortunately. Once you hit Champion or even Ultimate, the game's upper levels, or if your Digimon dies in battle a few times, your Digimon can reincarnate, so to speak, and starts from the very beginning of the Digivolutionary line, aka is a weak little plush pet that can barely do anything, so you have to spend several in-day games raising it back up to have any shot of handling yourself in almost any of the game environments. This is a nice thought in one way, because if you're invested, it can motivate you to raise your Digimon in other ways to try and reach other branches of evolutions. But it does get bothersome when you found out exactly what you need to do, but have to stop to spend a couple hours just to get your Digimon back into a condition that will let you have a hope of advancing where you left off. And another unfortunate error is that there were some heavy glitches introduced when this game was brought to other regions. A good number of them just outright freezing your game for doing simple things like interacting with a certain in-game object, or talking to a certain Digimon a number of times. I think in some European copies, you just straight up can't finish the game due to teleporters not working. This isn't a smooth ride by any means, and you should expect some text boxes to glitch through among other oddities. It's charming in a "aw, you're trying" kind of way once you know what to do, but these are also incredibly innocent things a first-time player would have no idea about. And since you can only save when your Digimon sleeps, or in Vile City, you can potentially lose a lot of progress through no fault of your own. And honestly, this isn't a very fun game to repeat lost progress in. I haven't even touched on the battles yet. Unless you raise your Digimon's brain stat high enough, you barely have any influence in battles. You as the player are basically an observer to them, who can make incredibly vague calls on what to do for most stat levels, or if your Digimon becomes incredibly smart, you can at least call out which specific moves out of a set of 3 you'd like your partner to perform. Other than that, you start with a quote, "your call" command, which just lets your Digimon run around and do whatever it wants. And even with more advanced commands, it will likely continue to do just that. Battles in Digimon World boil down to a lot of nervous bystanding, kind of like betting on a horse race where you can occasionally throw healing items into the course to try and help your horse not be killed by a firebomb or a jolt of lightning. Okay, that comparison fell apart at the end. There's also a foe meter called Finish, where over time, letters slowly appear to spell out the word Finish. Once they have, you can hit the square button for your Digimon to start charging their ultimate move, while quickly tapping the L1 and R1 buttons back and forth to fill a gauge that appears. What goes wrong here is, like the other commands, when you hit square to activate this, it doesn't immediately trigger. Sometimes your Digimon stands there waiting, sometimes they run around nonsensically to assumedly get a better position, and if the enemy starts charging an attack right before your Digimon begins charging up, and it lands, the finishing move is cancelled and you lose all progress and have to wait to build it up again. Basically, the enemy can cancel you out based on pure luck, which can be supremely frustrating, especially when finish moves can often determine the outcome of a fight. Digimon World is an incredibly tough game to wholeheartedly recommend, even to a fan of Digimon. I think it's charming in spite of its heavy flaws and odd quirks, but you absolutely have to go in knowing you are likely going to be frustrated and constantly referring to years old, poorly written guides online as to what you actually need to do and set yourself toward. What's not helping is that the game isn't exactly pleasing to the eye. It does a lot to establish the original Digimon aesthetic, random touches of technological devices in a natural environment, and I wouldn't say it's ugly, but for a 2000 title it could look better. The music will keep you going though, often with simple, soft melodies alongside battle themes that are surprisingly invigorating. I've played the game a lot throughout my life, and I've only managed to beat it twice. It's certainly an odd notch in the PlayStation 1's belt, and definitely an interesting start to the Digimon game series, but don't get too cozy since next time it all changes in Digimon World 2. Until then, I've been MykonosFan, this has been Learning to Love PlayStation, and thank you very much for watching. This video was generously supported by the following patrons on Patreon. Thank you.